You don't have the keys. What do you mean the house is deserted? I said. That can't be right. I clutched my phone, my knuckles white. I was pacing back and forth in front of the house that had once been mine, and the neighbor across the street was watching me from his porch. During spring break, I drove 4 hours from my university to Bakersfield, where I discovered my childhood home with a for sale sign hammered into the front grass. My name is Jasmine Rojas. There were no windows. There are no curtains or furniture in sight. Like unwelcome visitors, 3 black trash bags were sitting on the doorstep. I noticed my garments as I peered into one. My books, snippets of the life I had abandoned to attend college. According to your father, you ought to have called first. On the other end of the line, my Uncle Thomas spoke tentatively. Last week they relocated. Did they not inform you no? I said the word, just managing to get past the knot in my throat. I didn't hear anything from them. After hanging up, I dialed my dad. Every ring seemed to go on forever. Hi there. His tone was lifeless and bland. The house is vacant, Dad. My belongings are in rubbish bags on the porch. What's happening? A pause. Then we made a move. Now you're an adult. Take care of it. The line died. Stunned, I gazed at my phone. I returned the call directly to voicemail. I tried using my mother's phone, which is also the phone that my younger brother uses. No response. As simple as that. Their lives had been wiped of me. No notice, no farewell. Not even a forwarding address as a courtesy. As I stood there, I noticed the lengthy shadows that the sunset was casting across my former front yard. My father and I had planted a maple tree when I was 8 years old, and it was still standing tall with branches that extended toward a house that was no longer ours. Every month, I had used a portion of my scholarship funds to travel home. I worked part-time while maintaining a 3.9 GPA in pre-law. It had been me who was in charge. The quiet one, the troublemaker, without ever causing any. And my prize was this. I refrained from crying. Then no. Rather, I grabbed those trash bags and packed them into my vehicle. I laid out my rescued belongings on the scratchy duvet of the motel where I had booked in for the night. A shattered picture frame with a picture of my family at the seaside 3 summers ago, some textbooks and winter clothing I left behind. Everyone is grinning. Everybody is lying. That evening, I decided something. I would do the same to them if they tried to delete me. I would sever all connections and create something that they would never be able to take away. I was raised with the idea that family meant unwavering support. Family first was essentially our household religion, because my parents had immigrated from Mexico before I was born. While my mother cleaned houses, my father worked extra shifts at the manufacturing plant. Every day they served as a reminder of their sacrifices. To give you everything, we come here with nothing. Over supper, my father would say, "Your ticket is education." While other children attended parties, I took their remarks seriously. When my friends from high school started working summer jobs at the mall, I continued to study. At the local courthouse, I worked as an intern. The first payoff for their investment was to have me accepted to university on a pre-law scholarship. Gabriel, my younger brother, was unique. He had academic difficulties, had been caught shoplifting twice, and preferred playing video games than reading books. However, my parents never made any threats to expel him. They stood up for him, helped him, and showed him forgiveness. He's figuring things out. Perhaps that's why their abandonment caught me off guard, they would say. While the troublesome boy stayed under their care, the sensible daughter was discarded. I contacted my constitutional law professor, Professor Wilkins, who had taken on the role of mentor to me that night in the motel. She said, "They just left." Her voice was one of disbelief. Indeed, I don't know what to do. During break, I can't exactly return to the dorms. When the emotion finally came out, my voice broke. "Jasmine, pay attention to me. Until the dormitories reopen, come stay with me. Together, we will solve this." Professor Wilkins has 2 ancient cats and a Victorian home full of books. She handed me a key to her guest room. She stated there was no time limit. Pay attention to your studies, that spring break, rather than unwinding. I got right into my research. I was able to secure a summer legal internship with Riverton Law Partners, which focuses on housing discrimination issues thanks to Professor Wilkins. I didn't miss the irony. One evening at tea, Professor Wilkins suggested that we channel it. Personal experience makes for the best advocacy. As I nodded, I recalled the family pictures I had discovered rumpled at the bottom of a trash bag. My high school graduation and quinceañera. My parents celebrated all of these milestones, but then threw away the proof like garbage. I blocked their numbers that evening. Each and every one. My mom, dad, and brother. Even uncles and aunts who might condone their actions. I just replied, "We're not in touch, fuh." When someone inquired about my family, not a dramatic tale, no appeal for pity. Sentimentality had no place in the foundation of what I was developing from the ground up. Everything changed during the summer internship at Riverton Law Partners. After my boss lawyer, Eleanor Grayson, noticed my talent for relating to clients, what had begun as simple research and coffee runs swiftly changed. After I assisted a young mother who was about to be evicted, she told me, "You have something rare, Jasmine. You pay attention." I was tasked with helping with admission interviews, meeting families, helping elderly tenants who were being forced out of cheap housing by developers, helping students who were dealing with predatory landlords, and more. I was moved by their stories in ways I was unable to describe. I remained up late one evening, compiling case notes following a very taxing day of interviewing 3 families from the same apartment complex who had all received simultaneous eviction notices. At 9 p.m., Eleanor discovered me there, encircled by papers that were burning through the night. Leaning against the doorframe, she posed the question. I remarked, "These families have nowhere to go. In exchange for terminating their leases early, the developers are giving them 2 weeks in a motel." Eleanor let out a sigh. Regretfully, that is frequently more than what is required by law. But I protested that it wasn't right. Finding new accommodation takes more than 2 weeks, especially when security deposits and the first month's rent are involved. "These folks are going to become homeless. The system isn't working properly." Eleanor concurred. "What will you do about it then?" I thought about that question for days. How could I get an internship as a second-year pre-law student? Maybe. Do you? During a required financial aid session at the university, the answer was surprising. Students could apply for social innovation grants, which provide seed money for ideas that solve community issues, the presenter said. There were only 2 weeks left before the application deadline. Writing a proposal for a housing advocacy program tailored to kids from low-income families kept me up 3 nights in a row. Safe Space Initiative is what I termed it. While I waited to hear back regarding the award, I got the first of many calls from my parents. Eleanor helped me polish the legal details, and Professor Wilkins examined the completed application. 6 months had passed since they had left me. My father left me a voicemail. "Your mother is concerned about you, Jasmine. Give us a call. Don't apologize." No justification. All they wanted was for me to obey their call like a dutiful daughter. I didn't return the call. Another voicemail 3 days later. "This lack of action is immature. Where is your family, Jasmine?" I didn't reply, but I did keep the message. The frequency of the calls increased. Occasionally my brother, occasionally my mother, and occasionally my father. They spoke in a variety of tones from begging to demanding. None of them admitted their actions. I didn't tell them when the university gave me a $25,000 social innovation grant to start the Safe Space Initiative. Instead, I delighted with Professor Wilkins and Eleanor when I received an offer of a paid job at Riverton to continue working through the academic year. People who supported me out of true respect and care, rather than out of duty, were beginning to establish my new family. 23 students had received support from the Safe Space Initiative in their battle against unlawful evictions by January. With 2 paralegal volunteers and a revolving roster of law students completing clinical hours, we worked out of a repurposed storage room at Riverton Law Partners. I usually hurried from classes to the office, examining cases and honing our strategy in the nights. Although arduous, the labor was rewarding. Every family that kept a home, every student felt like they had won a personal battle by avoiding homelessness. From the ruins of my own expulsion, I was creating something significant. In the meantime, my parents' efforts to get back in touch had intensified. The calls arrived in frighteningly frequent intervals, often several times a day. They recruited family members when I didn't stop ignoring them. Every night, your mom breaks down in tears. No matter what they did, my Aunt Lucia texted, "Are you unable to forgive them?" I also didn't reply to these communications. They had not yet acknowledged any sin, and forgiveness needed acknowledgement. Devin, a sophomore, came back from winter break to discover that his landlord had rented his place to someone else. I was counseling him on a Tuesday afternoon in February, even if his lease was paid in full. The office telephone rang as we were talking about his alternatives. Effort for safe spaces. "It's Jasmine here." With an apologetic gesture toward Devin, I replied, "Jasmine." "Is that you?" My mother's voice was heard. I felt sick to my stomach. "How was this number obtained?" She answered, "It's on your website. Why haven't you given us a call back? We've been quite anxious." Devin stirred uneasily in his seat. I put a lid on the mouthpiece. "I apologize. I have to take care of this. Would you mind a little waiting outside?" I uncovered the phone after he had gone. "This is where I work. Don't call here again, please. Your folks are where?" My mother's voice broke as she spoke. "We are entitled. I take it you lost that when you packed my possessions in trash bags and sold our house without notifying me," I interrupted. "Right now, I'm not doing this. Your dad did something wrong," she begged. "We experienced financial difficulties. They were foreclosing on the house. We felt ashamed." I briefly sensed a break in my determination. Financial difficulties, foreclosure. They had never spoken about financial difficulties. "You could have told me if you were in difficulty." I spoke in a quieter tone. I would have been of assistance. I had already started sending home money. Your dad wouldn't permit it. "His pride," she remarked. "You are aware of his nature. Since I was a little child, I was aware that my father's pride had shaped our family dynamic. However, pride did not excuse their actions. I have to return to work." I spoke aggressively. "Please be mindful of my personal space." Before she could answer, I hung up, setting the receiver down with a little tremor in my hands. I believed I had successfully buried the feelings that the little talk had brought to the surface. Of course, anger, but also a residual sense of obligation to them. Eleanor discovered me still staring at safe spaces at my workstation later that night. "Call history. Is everything all right? You appear preoccupied." "Sitting on the edge of my desk," she said. After a moment of hesitation, I informed her about the call. "There is a part of me that wishes they had a valid explanation." I acknowledged that it went beyond simple brutality. Eleanor thought about it. Jasmine people rarely behave out of genuine cruelty. However, excuses are not the same as reasons. Regardless of their financial difficulties, they decided to deal with them by abruptly leaving you. She was correct. Nevertheless, my mother's justification had sowed mistrust. What if the tale wasn't just that? What if they were in a desperate situation? Against my better judgment, I did something that I had been avoiding for months the following day. I looked up my family on the internet. Any growing sympathy was shattered by what I discovered. 3 weeks after they had relocated, my mother shared a happy Facebook photo of herself, my father and Gabriel grinning in front of a new home. It said in the caption, "Fresh starts." So fortunate. The financial crisis had not occurred. No foreclosure had occurred. The decision to abandon me had just been made. The calls that went unanswered piled up like snow. 120, 150, 200. Voicemails from my parents changed from being demanding to being appealing, sporadically interspersed with details of their new lives, as though we were having a regular, continuous discussion, rather than a one-sided barrage. Gabriel received a community college acceptance. Late March was when my mother reported. "He's learning how to program computers. He was intelligent, you always stated. We had tamales from the neighbors." In April, my father made the announcement. "They're attempting to be hospitable, but they're not as excellent as your mother's." I was more enraged by these informal updates than by their previous requests. They were going about their lives and making new friends in the community, commemorating achievements. All the while, I was still dealing with the shock of their desertion. In the meantime, the Safe Space Initiative was becoming more well-known. A local news station interviewed a number of the students we had assisted for a piece on our work. A profile showcasing my creative approach to housing justice was then published in the campus newspaper. Our caseload has rose as a result of these little highlights. We require additional resources. One afternoon, I pointed at our bulging intake folders and informed Eleanor. More people volunteered, more room, more money. Maybe I have an answer, she said. Applications are now accepted for the Watkins Foundation's yearly social justice grants. The prize is significant enough to cover the cost of hiring employees and renting suitable workspace. It was a demanding application process. I gathered client testimonies, compiled data on student housing insecurity, and spent weeks crafting and revising our proposal. The completed document, which was 47 pages long, included information on safe areas, mission approach, and quantifiable effects. I was called by an unknown number with the area code of my hometown 2 days after I submitted. "Hi there," I gave a cautious response. "Jasmine, the person from next door is Mrs. Hernandez, our old neighbor. Since the day I discovered the house was vacant, I had not talked to her. I hope I'm allowed to call," she added. "I got your number from your brother. If you saw their identities on caller ID, he suggested you might not answer." My defenses went up instantly. "If this has to do with getting back in touch with my parents," she interrupted. No. "Not exactly. It has to do with the house. Your former residence last night, someone broke in. The location is obviously deserted, but the cops believe they were searching for valuables. I was requested by your father to see whether you had returned for anything. He had no intention of reporting a break-in. If it was only you." The ridiculousness almost made me laugh. "Ever since that day, I have not returned. Hernandez misses. In addition, I no longer have keys. I informed him of this." She let out a sigh. "However, there's more. An envelope bearing your name was left behind by the intruder. I got it from the police because I'm keeping an eye on the property." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it saying? I have not yet to open it." "I said," she said, "although it appears official, it is addressed to you. It has the name of a law firm on it. Mail from my previous address. I shouldn't be receiving legal documents from anyone there. My address was changed months ago. Are you able to open it?" I inquired. "Tell me what it says, please." I heard shredding paper. Then there was quiet. "It is Mrs. Hernandez. It has to do with your grandmother's property." At last, she said, "Your Mexican maternal grandmother. When I was 13, my grandmother passed away. She was hardly in my memory. How about her property? It states that you inherited Oaxaca real estate. Mrs. Hernandez, please take your time reading this bank statement. Jasmine, it displays more than $400,000. My head whirled. That isn't possible. My grandma led a modest life. That was not the type of money she had. The property was developed after her death, according to the letter. Condos and resorts. The money made from the selling of 2 units is your share." As Mrs. Hernandez dictated the contact details for the law company, I reached for a pen and began to scribble. As I considered the possibilities, my palm began to shake. "Does it specify the date on which this inheritance became accessible?" Mrs. Hernandez stopped and shuffled papers. Indeed. Last March it was finalized. March of last year, 1 month before, to my parents' desertion. It couldn't have happened by accident. Even though they were aware of my inheritance, they still abandoned me. While I was still processing the news of the inheritance, I received a call from the Watkins Foundation. We had to prepare a presentation for their board after being chosen as grant finalists. This would have been a reason to celebrate in a normal situation. With the Foundation's Support Safe Space would go from being a tenacious student project to a recognized charity. However, I was preoccupied. My mind keeps returning to the surprising legacy left by my grandmother. I spoke with Eleanor and then got in touch with the Mexican law company that was managing the estate. Everything was confirmed by them. It was a valid inheritance. I owned the money. And most tellingly, more over a year ago, when I was still 19, my parents, who were my legal guardians, received notification. They didn't tell me this. At one of our many dinners, I told Professor Wilkins. They put my belongings in trash bags, even though they knew I was going to inherit this. She put her fork down. "Have you thought about why cash with bitterness?" I said. They most likely believed they were more deserving of it than I was. Maybe she admitted, but it's hard to conceal an inheritance. Eventually, you would have learned. Perhaps they wanted to express their gratitude to me by telling me on their terms. Reliant. I moved my plate out of the way. The appetite is gone. Or perhaps they had no intention of telling me at all. 3 days before, to the Watkins Foundation presentation, the inheritance money was moved to my account. Although I wasn't sure what to do with the money, there was a weird sense of security in its presence. I felt financially detached from my past for the first time since discovering my childhood house was empty. A Saturday afternoon in May was the planned date for the Watkins presentation. I was an hour early at the Foundation's downtown offices going over my notes in the modern waiting room. In order to extend Safe Spaces programs outside of the institution to the larger community, we proposed allocating $300,000 over 3 years. Eleanor, looking dapper in a charcoal suit, arrived 20 minutes ahead of schedule. "Are you ready, sitting next to me as I always will be?" she asked. As I straightened my own well-chosen blazer, I answered, "Navy blue, not threatening but professional." She cautioned that although the board may appear formal, impact is important to them. Pay attention to the human tales. Safe spaces transform lives. 8 people were seated around a polished table in the boardroom where we were led. I identified a few from my investigation. William Watkins, the director of the foundation. A former judge philanthropist and prominent members of the local business community stood up to welcome us. "Rojas Miss, Grayson Miss, greetings." He pointed to the presenting space as he spoke. "The written proposal you submitted has pleased us. Tell us why we should support Safe Space." I started the lecture by plugging my laptop into their projector and outlining the Safe Spaces path from student initiative to community resource, emphasizing systemic consequences and important examples. Eleanor added legal context by describing how our methodology addressed service deficiencies. I was 20 minutes into our expansion plan when the door to the boardroom opened. Mr. Watkins nodded as a foundation staffer whispered something to him. "Miss Rojas, I'm sorry for disturbing you," Mr. Watkins stated. "Some of the folks here are claiming to be your relatives. They're quite determined to talk to you." My heart stopped beating. "They say it's urgent, my family," he added, appearing uneasy. "We can request that they hold off until we are done." Eleanor gave my arm a comforting pat. "Jasmine, you call." I sucked in a calming breath. My parents had located me at what may have been the most significant professional turning point in my early career. After months of unanswered calls, the timing couldn't be more telling or worse. "Tell them I'll talk to them after the presentation, please." My voice was very steady as I spoke. "It's too crucial to interrupt now." After receiving a nod of approval from Mr. Watkins, the assistant departed to convey my message. Though my thoughts was racing, I returned my attention to the presentation. And why would it be so urgent? Following almost a year of quiet on autopilot, I completed the presentation. Despite the emotional turmoil below the board, my professional voice asked perceptive questions to which I provided comprehensive answers. I'm determined not to let this opportunity be impacted by my personal drama. Instead of feeling excited, I felt hollow when they eventually thanked us and said they will make a decision in 2 weeks. As we collected our supplies, Eleanor remarked, "You were excellent," especially considering the situation. Gabriel and my parents waited in the reception area outside the boardroom. When my mother spotted me, she got up, her face displaying a complicated range of emotions, including fear, resolve, and hope. My dad stayed in his chair. His face was reserved. Awkwardly hovering between them, Gabriel avoided eye contact with me. "Jasmine." My mom started to go forward. "We must speak." Eleanor gave me a shoulder squeeze. "I'll let you be alone. Give me a call later." With a grateful nod, I turned to face my family. "You're here, but why?" "How did you discover me at all?" "We read about your housing scheme in the papers. According to my mother, it made reference to today's Watkins presentation. For months, we have been attempting to contact you." "I know," I said calmly. "It's difficult to miss 247 calls." At last, my dad got up. "We've had enough of this. Jasmine, you're acting like a child." I let out an irritated laugh. Adolescent. My possessions were in rubbish bags when I got home. You didn't tell me you sold our house. You left me behind. The childish one is me. We were wrong. With a quivering voice, my mother spoke. We wish to put things right. You wish to make it right now, I inquired. A year later, following. Without you, I have completely remade my life. Why now? Gabriel stirred uneasily. Jazz, just listen to them. I am aware of the inheritance. Flatly, I said. Is it the reason for your sudden desire in making amends since the funds were received? My dad's expression hardened. You've always made snap judgments. Additionally, you've always disposed of things so quickly, I retorted. Last March, you were aware of my grandmother's estate. You didn't tell me, then tossed me aside. My mom's eyes got big. I confirmed that I knew everything. So what do you desire right now? A family reckoning was not appropriate in the foundation's reception area, so we moved to a coffee shop nearby. As they tried to explain the unexplained, I sat across from them, keeping a physical and emotional distance. My mother, holding her unfinished coffee, confessed that we were embarrassed. The foreclosure. I couldn't make enough money cleaning houses after your father lost his job. We were unable to inform you, so you left me without asking for aid. I spoke quietly and deliberately. Shortly after you went for spring semester, we learned of your grandmother's wealth. My dad clarified. When you turned 21, you would inherit according to the lawyer. We considered. We believed that we could improve our financial situation if we relocated and began over somewhere other. By selling the house and leaving me with nothing before you knew, we went into a panic. Your father believed that you would be better off without our troubles according to my mother. Your scholarship was awarded to you, your pals from college. I pressed now. What caused the abrupt change of heart? They looked at each other. Gabriel raised his voice. Jazz, they made a grave error. Now they are aware of that. The concept of a safe space. Gruffly, my father added in the newspaper, we recognized we had lost something valuable after witnessing what you had accomplished. Your daughter is successful. With bitterness, I translated. My mother insisted on saying no. Our relationship, our family. I researched them. These individuals had influenced and then destroyed my early existence. My mom appeared older. Her black hair has noticeable gray threads. In some way, my father appeared shrunken. Under his battered jacket, his shoulders drooped. Gabriel was an inch taller, the maturation of his boyish looks. My life has been rebuilt. Finally, new connections, I remarked. People that respect me despite my achievements. Your family still includes us. My dad was adamant. I slowly looked into his eyes. Your family does not place your possessions in trash bags. I got up from the table, put down enough money to buy all of our beverages, and got ready to go. I don't require resolution. I've made progress. Respecting my limits is the first step towards making amends, though. I experienced an unexpected feeling as I was leaving. Not approval or validation, but a silent power. I had accepted my desertion on my own terms and left whole. The Watkins Foundation announced the following morning that Safe Space Initiative had received the entire grant amount, plus an extra $50,000 for operating costs. I was called that afternoon by a national news organization about Include Safe Space in a piece about creative approaches to housing justice. 2 weeks later, millions of people saw the story, including my parents, I found out later. They didn't give another call. The family you create for yourself might occasionally outlast the one you were born into. I also realized that I would never again gauge my value by the opinions of others as I looked to the future.